To me, we are the most beautiful creatures in the whole world, Black people. And I mean that in every sense, outside and inside. And to me, we have a culture that is surpassed by no other civilization, but we don't know anything about it. So again, I think sometime before, my job is to somehow make them curious enough or persuade them by hook and crook to get more aware of themselves and where they came from and what they are into and what is already there, and to just bring it out. This is what compels me to compel them, and I will do it by whatever means necessary. Nina Simone. What Nina Simone was articulating was Blackness and the beauty of Blackness. Sadly, Miss Simone, you are among a minority that sees the beauty in Blackness. I was invited by our esteemed colleague, Dr. Franklin T. Wilson, to the Crime, Media, and Popular Culture Studies Conference back in March. And for that, I thank you. At the time, I had a clear sense of what I would discuss, what I would talk about, what I wanted to relate to you. I had recently published a book on the topic, so the content was easy. 5 months later, not more than a month ago, that all changed. Thanks a lot, Ezell Ford. Thanks a lot, John Crawford. Thanks a lot, Eric Garner. Thanks a lot, Mike Brown. Your deaths made me really have to contemplate what it means to punish Blackness. I wanted to talk about some cool ghetto avatars, or pixelated thugs, or sassy streetwalkers in San Andreas. The idea of discussing the punishment of Blackness was easy to contain in the nice, neat parameters of digital spaces. However, I realized this discussion is broader than a game, than a console. It's more than just Grand Theft Auto. It's more than just athletes celebrating after a touchdown. It's more than just African zombies. It's fun and easy to talk about how Blackness is punished in video games because there are no real victims. It's just a game, so it doesn't really matter. Being called a nigger in Xbox Live is no big deal. You'll never meet these people. But I can't help but notice the sinister connection in how we've normalized the victimization of Black bodies in both the real and virtual worlds. So what do I actually mean by punishing Blackness? Let's define the terms. Punish, a verb, to inflict a penalty or sanction as retribution for an offense, especially of a legal or moral code, to treat someone in an unfairly harsh way. Synonyms: unfairly disadvantaged, handicapped, hurt, wrong, ill-use, maltreat. Blackness, the quality or state of the achromatic color of least likeness, bearing the least resemblance to white, the quality or state of being Black. Torre suggests, and I'm in agreement with, that there is no clear definition of what Black is or what Blackness means. Blackness means to be rooted in all things Black, but not bound or restricted by it. There is no Black authenticity. There is no box of niggerdom. There is no singular Black experience, but there are some commonalities that bind our ties. I define Blackness as inclusive of the variety of cultures that now constitute the Black diaspora. This includes the original people of this land whose culture was stolen, whose women were raped, who were displaced to the perimeters and ghettos of America the Beautiful. Those who helped escaped slaves find freedom, those who served as advisors for the construction of the Underground Railroad, the Cherokee, the Chickasaw, the Shawnee, the Seminole, the Creek. This includes those who were delivered to more tropical destinations via La Amistad, those who were forced to speak the language of the colonizer, the tongue of the oppressor, those who now make up the beautiful people of Cuba, Puerto Rico, Central and South America. This includes those who were previously afforded the privileges of whiteness until the unfortunate events of September 11th, 2001. Yes. Blackness includes those people who don't even know they're Black and might not ever acknowledge their Blackness, yet they are punished. So how did this trend of punishing Blackness begin? Mark Twain said, "Truth is stranger than fiction." Yes, but truth also informs fiction. The template exists. It has been created for us. When members of the Black diaspora were securely contained and detained on either reservations, on tobacco fields, on cotton fields, there was no need for a concerted effort to police Blackness. It was very much rooted in the culture. There was no extra effort necessary. If you can recall the propaganda and media campaigns surrounding runaway slaves, they weren't rooted in the dangerousness of the escaped slave. They were merely informational. There was no need fearing the slave. They were depicted as shiftless, simple, ignorant, always singing and dancing, in love with watermelons, just pickaninnies. Even post-Nat Turner, there was swift retribution. Slaves involved and not involved in that revolt were murdered. Repressive policies were implemented. Rights of the freed were taken away. The uprising discouraged white allies from even questioning the slave system. There was no need for a lingering media campaign. Furthermore, there were no other uprisings that could ever compare to Nat Turner's revolt. Only once slaves were freed and the era of Reconstruction began did the idea of punishing Blackness in the sense that we know now today emerge today. The template was solidified with the birth of a nation, creating the fear of the Black other using women, Blacks in positions of power over whites, and the need for white vigilante groups such as the KKK to reestablish honest government. The template of creating a fear of Blackness, vowing the need to protect white womanhood, criminalizing Black masculinity, overdoing Black punishments, have been perfected by movies, news, sports culture, social media. So, how do video games, as an extension of convergent media, fit this template perfected by popular culture? How do video games punish Blackness? Specifically by employing Omi and Wynant's conception of a racial project, we can see how many popular video games fit within this theoretical schema wherein racialized ideas, bodies, and structures are constructed, mediated, and presented through a safe medium. Using their definition, race should not be understood in terms of physical or biological reality. Rather, race is created under conditions of power, whereby historically one group dominates over others politically, economically, and socially. Hegemony is a popular system of ideas and practices enacted through all social institutions. Race is embedded into the social fabric of the American social order, validating racialized practices in many institutional settings, and video games are not exempt from this trend. The dominant narratives deployed in video games such as Halo, Call of Duty, Street Fighter, Gears of War, Grand Theft Auto, and others lead to the continued construction and maintenance of hegemonic masculinity and whiteness as privilege. The ideology deployed via the narrative of video games refers to the collective of ideas that reflect the interests of a particular group of people. What has occurred in the United States context is that race has infiltrated in such a way that these ideologies have been mainstreamed and have found themselves embedded in digital media and video gaming. The purpose of these images and narratives is to make intersecting inequalities to appear natural, normal, and inevitable parts of everyday life. These normalized images continue to justify the oppression of marginalized and minority groups. One would think that debunking and challenging these narratives would be an easy feat, but these images have been generalized to the point of normalcy by the dominant group who holds the authority to define values within society and continue to proliferate, where stories counter to these images cannot compete. Through my research, I've identified 5 areas that have been employed to punish Blackness in video games. Now, I won't be able to go into each into detail because of time purposes, but there are some images here that would allow you to get the point. Stereotypical representations: coon, Black buffoon, the gangster, the thug, the over-aggressive athlete, the monstrous third world other. Ooh, it's scary down there. Conquering the other, where you and your privileged body will go out to these different places and destroy their communities, destroy their lands, destroy their homes. Racial tourism. We get to go down through Chinatown and see how they live. We get to go to the hood using our controllers. The deletion of blackness. Video games back in the day used to do a good job at showcasing black characters. But over time, these characters have evolved into some Caucasoid, skeletal, or even white other. The representations of blackness are the most telling within Xbox Live and the larger gaming community. Race and gender as hierarchical structures have manifested in video games in stereotypical manners that fit within the hegemonic notions of what it means to be a person of color, or monstrous other from the third world, or what it means to be a woman. This is only able to occur because the identity of blackness has been defined as deviant within society, popular culture, and media. Deviance is a term that refers to behavior that does not conform to socially accepted norms. As Terry and Erla explained, deviant social behavior manifests in the materiality of the body, and how different one may look, and how different one behaves, and how different one dresses, and the food that one may eat, and the way that one may punish their children. It is important to note that not all bodies are eligible to be labeled deviant. Most often, blackness and any association with blackness are punished the most violently in the space and deemed unworthy of full value. Blackness is a discursive practice exercised by the confluence of history, economics, geography, and language. It has been constructed in a manner that enables and is enabled by its counterpart, whiteness. Whiteness has the ability to move, and this ability to move results in the unmarking of that body, creating the default setting, normalizing whiteness in the white experience, which in video games is an array of stories. In contrast, blackness is signified through a marking and othering and is always static and immobilizing. It is bound by the boundaries set forth by the establishment of the space. As the relativist view of deviance would confirm, this embodiment is a process rather than a given, and in order to sustain this meaning, it must be constantly and continuously articulated and performed, and this is what occurs in Xbox Live. The primary means of interacting in Xbox Live is through real-time voice communication. Because of this use of voice, aspects of your identity is automatically emitted into the space. People can hear that you're a woman. People can hear that you speak with an accent. People can hear that you are black. Because of this use, much of the racism that occurs stems from linguistic profiling. Similar to racial profiling, linguistic profiling occurs when auditory cues, as opposed to visual cues, are used to confirm and or speculate on the racial background of an individual. Additionally, these acts of racism stem from the anonymous nature of virtual communities. Because virtual spaces allow for a certain level of anonymity, people don't know who you are, and some users are compelled to say and do things that they wouldn't normally say and do in real-world physical spaces. Examples to illustrate. When you have the video game media not show so much color, then of course something like black people don't play video games gets spat out from media's mouth. The major media doesn't have any personalities that shows gaming from an urban perspective. Therefore, we don't exist in many people's eyes. You can call me a nigger, a porch monkey, or whatever, but I'm still a gamer. A.B. Frazier from the Coalition. I've been a video game freak all my life. I play Need for Speed, Gears of War, Dead or Alive. I play Halo. But when they came up with Halo 2, it was more like for the online thing. I stopped because my own team would kill me because they'd hear my voice and start calling me nigger. If you was right next to me at the arcade, you wouldn't say nothing. I don't ever tell them who I am, but I just forgive them for being ignorant. Quentin Rampage Jackson. As Rampage Jackson articulates, as soon as someone hears his voice, they immediately racialize the gaming experience. Many scholars lump acts of racism and sexism under the framework of griefing or flaming. I contend it should be unpacked from this larger framework and examined independently. Griefing has been defined as the intentional harassment of a player that falls outside normal gameplay. Griefing can also be understood as a source of deep mental anguish, annoyance, or frustration that one player experiences at the hands of another player. Grief players are actually considered deviant within the literature because they intentionally violate codes, rules, and overall appropriate gaming etiquette of the virtual gaming communities in which they're interacting. However, those who engage in this type of behavior are not punished in a deviant manner within Xbox Live and are actually praised by their efforts by their peers. It becomes a joke to diminish the gaming experiences of another person. Similar to griefing, flaming refers to negative antisocial behaviors, including the expression of hostility, the use of profanity, and the venting of strong emotions. It's the big three in gaming culture, if you ask me. Gamers who engage in flaming use outwardly hostile speech toward other gamers using text or voice-based communication. This is the category which includes sexist and heterosexist and racist speech, and is the only definition that encompasses what gamers of color and women experience in Xbox Live. As Dorwick explains, flaming can be understood as the spontaneous creation of homophobic, racist, and misogynistic language during electronic communication. This definition is useful to explaining what occurs because of the incorporation of the word spontaneous, because most of the hostile speech is unwarranted and it comes out of nowhere. There is a process that emerges that leads to racist speech after linguistic profiling occurs: questioning, provoking, instigating, and ultimately racism. Questioning is the first step that may lead to racism. The simple question asked is, "Wait, dude, are you black?" Attempting to confirm that sound of blackness. As illustrated in previous studies on Xbox Live, the majority of observed racist behaviors did in fact begin with this question or another similar racial inquiry. The second step in the process is provoking. The difference is that this harassment is always linked to the body, an aspect outside of the gamer's control. Many gamers who use racist language recited offensive black jokes, challenge the penis size of black men, challenge citizenship of gamers with accents or Latino-sounding gamers, explain disgust for big lips, criticize the use of Ebonics or Spanglish, and even disrespected black mothers. The purpose of this provocation seemed to be a means to situate blackness as inferior, deeming it deviant within the space. Most of the time, the provoking would lead into instigation, but oftentimes instigation preceded provoking. Either way, instigation was the only step that sometimes would not occur. But when it did, offending gamers would enter into a game with friends, and this group of friends would fuel the flames of the offending gamer. The provocation and instigation ultimately leads to the ultimate act of racism, which is the black-sounding gamer being called nigger within the space. Once this word is uttered, either diffusion or a virtual race war would follow. If diffusion occurred, then either the offending gamer or the black-sounding gamer would be removed from the session. But if there was no diffusion, then the black-sounding gamer would enter into a heated argument using profanity and racist language towards the white-sounding offender. It's important to gain a sense in how black gamers manifest this reality, how they make sense of their experiences, how they internalize what's happening to them. This short video here does just that, and this black gamer has taken to social media to articulate his experiences in Xbox Live.
You'll feel sorry for me like I fly line. Today I wanted to talk about how hard it is being a black gamer, you know? Every time that I log on to Xbox Live, it's these prepubescent white teenagers calling me things like nigger and jiggle joggles and the cornbread fed nappy head, and you know, those things, they're easy to shrug off, but sometimes it can just be overwhelming, you know? Like, back in 2005, and this is a true story, by the way, I know I'm coming out of character, but this is a true story. My original gamer tag was Agent Double O Negro, and I used to go into game lobbies, and every time, man, every freaking time, these prepubescent white teenagers would shout things through the microphone like, "You're a fake black guy," and it was all because, you know, Xbox Live children, they think all black people sound the same, you know, they think we all have ultra deep, very white voices. I just got numerous comments about how black people don't have internet, and people just constantly threaten to report me for being a fake black guy on Xbox Live. Well, long story short, my account got so many reports on it that I ended up having to change my name to Modern War Negro on Xbox Live. But that's not the real reason why it's so tough being a black gamer. The tough to create a character in the game, you only get 2 skin tone options, either dark or dark as hell. And when it comes to choosing hair, black people only get 3 options in video games: the afro, cornrows, and dreads. Dear game developers, black people haven't worn cornrows since 2001. Now, granted, it took Allen Iverson a little longer than the rest to get with the times, but now the only person on earth still rocking struggle braids is Pusha T. He thinks the power of his hair is some goofy shit. But seriously, look at this bullshit. Right now, we're looking at a game on PC called Arma 3. In the create a character option, you can customize 15 different white soldiers, but there's only 2 black ones, and they look the fucking same. Now look at Saints Row 3. You can only choose from afros, dreads, and cornrows. But there is hope. BioWare allowed me to create a black Commander Shepard, and he held the motherfucking galaxy down. So I know it's possible. But no, y'all rather give us characters like this. They still got the moves, baby. What about my Hispanic and Asian brothers and sisters? Every Asian hairstyle in a creative character mode looks like Vegeta. And if you're a white boy sitting there thinking, "Oh, this doesn't matter," that's easy for you to say, because every hero looks like you. All I'm saying is, we need less Coltrane's and more Lee Everett's. White people aren't the only ones capable of saving the world.
Oh, I tried to find pictures of black gamers. I was able to find young black males. I could not find a black girl playing the video game at all. Just saying. So can this problem be fixed or not? Since the stakeholder within the space, Microsoft Xbox, has yet to identify any meaningful solutions, many marginalized gamers have taken it upon themselves to do something about their negative experiences. We are steadily witnessing the appropriation of new communication technologies to facilitate collective organizing and mobilization. The development of social media creates opportunities for digital and web-based social movements to change the reality of collective action. Cyber activists have incorporated a host of tools to facilitate their organization activities, from staging boycotts to staging public protests and planning demonstrations, among others. Xbox, as a convergent medium, has witnessed the growth of activism among its gamers. Some tactics, regardless of success, include many marginalized gamers isolating themselves from the larger gaming community through the use of private parties and chats. Many gamers, in turn, grief the default gamer. When many women of color hear a white-sounding male, they will engage in hostile practices such as team killing, glitching, and other activities to diminish the enjoyment of the game. Many women choose to boycott certain games because of the stereotypical representations therein, and a small handful leave the Xbox Live community altogether and refuse to game at all. Drawing from resource mobilization theory, it depicts activists as rational actors who use sources available to them for their advantage, the reappropriation of resources for their own means. Highlighting Audre Lorde's speech, where she famously said, "For the master's tools will never dismantle the master's house." Can marginalized gamers within the space actually use the tools provided by the master to affect change within the community? While an oppressed group's experiences may put them in a position to see things differently, their lack of control over the apparatuses of society that sustain hegemony makes the articulation of their self-defined standpoint difficult. Audre Lorde's use of the word dismantle is significant to the ability for marginalized groups to sustain their empowerment. Lorde did not use destroy, which would imply an annihilation of hegemonic control. Dismantle suggests the breaking down into parts, not the total destruction of those elements. Dismantling could also mean that at some other time, those singular entities could very well form again into a cohesive whole. So, can the master's tools dismantle the master's house and Xbox Live? Seeing how little progress has been made for women and gamers of color, seeing how Xbox has not chimed into the discussion, seeing how there are no real means to address racism, no, the efforts of the marginalized, while they may bring temporary satisfaction, are futile, short-lived, and have a limited ability to affect significant change. Bell Hooks contends that as subjects, people have the right to define their own reality, establish their own identities, name their history. As objects, which where many marginalized populations reside, one's reality is defined by others. One's identity is created by others. One's history is named only in ways that define one's relationship to those who are subject. Under racism, sexism, class exploitation, heterosexism, and similar systems of oppression, elite groups use their power to uphold privilege through the economic, political, and ideological domination of blacks, women, poor people, LGBTQ, religious minorities, etc., etc. This perspective sees power relations as a zero-sum game, one in which less powerful people gain power when it is redistributed to them from the more powerful groups. Waiting for the powerful to allocate equal access to subordinate groups often leads to resistance, which can mean taking the power often by force, revolt, or revolution.